Everyone knows about Don't Fear the Reaper. Of course, Saturday Night Live made that a certain thing with their Cowbell skit, but there's a lot more to Don't Fear the Reaper. We talked to the writer, Buck Dharma, on Rock History Music. Even non-Blue Oyster cult fans would know the album Agents of Fortune, which of course featured the iconic lineup. It was the band's fourth studio album, released in 1976, and it was a major turning point in their career. This was the time where the band embraced a more polished and accessible sound, blending hard rock and pop sensibilities. Agents of Fortune became a huge commercial success, largely due to that song, which would later be known as the Cowbell song, which we'll get into in a second, that would be featured on Saturday Night Live, giving it a whole new life. Don't Fear the Reaper. Written by Buck Dharma, the song has a haunting melody and existential lyrics. It captured the imagination of a large audience. Don't Fear the Reaper reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and remains a staple on classic rock radio. Now the resurgence of Blue Oyster Cult's song Don't Fear the Reaper. It was significantly influenced by a sketch on Saturday Night Live that aired on April 8th, 2000. The sketch was known as More Cowbell, and it became an iconic moment in pop culture, revitalizing interest in that one song and the band. In the sketch, actor Christopher Walken plays a music producer, Bruce Dickinson, and he's overseeing the recording of the song Don't Fear the Reaper. Will Ferrell portrays Gene Frankel, a fictional cowbell player who's very enthusiastic about playing excessive cowbell, which becomes the focal point of the whole skit. Now, despite the band's attempts to focus on the overall recording of the song, Walken's character insists that the track needs more cowbell. Walken delivers that now iconic famous line, "Guess what? I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell." Now, the humor, of course, and the absurdity of the skit really struck a chord with fans, and it's become one of the most famous Saturday Night Live skits of all time. And that's when Don't Fear the Reaper had a resurgence. People wanted to hear it. And now it's ingrained in pop culture for a whole other reason. How'd the song come up?
How did, well, I don't know. I don't know if I had a conscious thought about writing something that was sort of spooky, but the story was just, it's a love story that transcends the death of the guy. The guy dies, right? But he finds a way to come back is what happens, and they go with the girl to another place. It's not where we are, but it's a real place, and that maybe was a fantasy of mine, just imagining that there was another plane of existence. There was an afterlife for this one, that's basically what it was.
Do you still believe that?
I was hoping there was. I like to, yeah. I mean, I'm open that it's nothing, that we just crumble, but I'd like to think that there's that, we don't know everything, I think it's demonstrative that, we do not know everything, there's, we're smug about a lot of things, but I think there's a lot of things out there that we have just no concept of.
You guys must have known when you released that you had.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I knew, I knew not the first time that I heard it because there was no words. Donald called me up and on the phone and he said, "Hey man, I got this riff. I think it's terrific." And he played it for me. And I'm like, "Yeah, hey, that's good. That's good. What else does it do?" He's like, no, it just goes over and over the same thing. I said, "Really?" He says, you'll see. I'm making a demo right now. I'll bring it, on the plane. So we're flying to Seattle, and he gave it to me, and I put it on. And I'm like, whoa, this is a hit. This is a hit. Oh my God, we have a hit. So, and then I played it for my girlfriend at the time. She's no longer with us, but she was a good friend from Seattle. And I played it for her, and she heard it, and she started crying. I said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "Are you breaking up with me?" And I'm like, no, babe, man, I didn't write this. This is Don Rosa wrote it, And she's like, "Oh, wow, it's beautiful." And I'm like, "Yep, Yep, it is. It is a beautiful song. And people ask me if there's a song that you ever get sick of playing. And I would have to say it, whatever song it is, it's not Reaper. I love playing that song. Every time I played it, I've never not loved playing it.
And when you come in with the drums with that, after that guitar intro, when you come in, was that just spontaneous? Did you think about it?
It was the third take, so we practice it in rehearsal. The middle part was the tricky part. So
Oh yeah.
We played one take where we got to the middle part and we screwed it up. So then we did a second take and we got all the way through it, and then the third take. When we did the third take, by then I had this great mix in my headphones, and as we're playing the ending, right, and it's there's no vocal. He didn't sing them, while we were doing it. We just kind of knew the song, and so most of what I did, I had already worked out. But when it came to the end, and we're doing this, and all of a sudden, I just started hitting the on the backbeats. I'm hitting this crash cymbal. Well, as it turned out, that was exactly when the words ended, and Donald heard me playing the crash, and he said, "I got to play a guitar riff on that." So he did that. So that was invented that moment when we recorded it, but a lot of it was worked out.
The On Your Feet or On Your Knees, the live album, it gave us a couple extra months to prepare for Agents of Fortune. And of course, Donald wrote The Reaper. I actually had a great arrangement. He brought in a cassette, another one of those cassettes, put it in at rehearsal, and I'm going, wow, this is it. It's hard to find a song that's a hit for a group that's kind of in the science fiction, heavy metal vein. I mean, so he took that sort of sci-fi thing and blended it into this love song. And what you have there is phenomenal. I knew it was going to be a hit. One way or another, it was going to be a hit.
From the cassette, from that first day?
The cassette, yeah. We would go out on these tours, and we would have like a get-together at the hotel after. We'd bring some record company people in, and they'd listen to cassette. And they go, whoa, wow, that's great. I mean, they liked all the other stuff, because we all had our little cassettes of demos and stuff. But that one definitely was a standout.
I remember the warning I got. I got a warning before I bought the album when I was in high school. I got the warning. They said, okay, you like that song, but there's a lot of other stuff on this album. And then I went back with older albums and I followed you guys through. But I like that because at that point, my palate was starting to get a little bit more, a little older, right? Where you go, you don't buy an album for a single and expect every song to sound like the single. You want more. Right? Different sides of the personality of the band. Yeah.
Well, it just happened that it coalesced on that record, and a lot of really strong things. ETIs, This Ain't the Summer of Love. I was just listening to that this morning. Strong stuff. I wrote the song. I was staying at Patty and Alan's apartment in the city, and Morning Final was basically a story that was in the newspaper, and it happened just down the block from where I was staying. There's a story in the newspaper, the Morning Final. So one of those sort of fortuitous things that it was sad situation at the time.
But you sing that, but you didn't have to audition for that. I mean, you wrote it.
Yeah, and I played piano on it too. And Alan Lanier plays bass. and he had a great feel for the bass on that. And then what we did is we did a segue into the next song where I'm playing the bass. So that one moment there, you could really hear the difference between Alan's kind of funky looseness, and then I'm really hitting it hard. It's one of my favorite spots on the whole album.
Yeah.
When the newspaper boy, played by Eric Bloom, wants to tell him about get your paper here, and then it cuts right to the next song. It's one of my favorite moments on the album. So it's little things like that that we were able to put together with that. And we were recording at the record plant in New York. The record plant where John Lennon was there. Jimi Hendrix was there. They had a great staff. Shelley Yakis mixed the song. We recorded and mixed the song. Unbelievable job. Yeah.
And everyone likes a reunion. It doesn't always happen. It's not a perfect world. Rick Emmett of Triumph once told me, he says, do you want to go on tour with your ex-wife? And sometimes it is like that. But how did Albert and Joe get back in?
Yeah, well, when the idea of doing restoring and burnishing these historic pre-production recordings came up, I know Steve Shank talked to Albert and Joe Bouchard, and they were down with it. They liked the idea, and we all cooperated on it, and it was a very pleasant and rewarding experience.
Who were the guys that you were emulating to when you were growing up? Who were the guys that got you?
Well, my first drummer that I loved was Gene Krupa, of course. My mother, she worked for the FBI when they were located in Chicago. And so she was a single woman. She had disposable income. She had a huge record collection. And of course, Benny Goodman being from Chicago, she had lots of Benny Goodman records. So I heard, Sing, Sing, Sing and all those great Gene Krupa songs. I loved the sound of that guy's drums. And so that was the first thing. That was before, I was aware that there was such a thing as rock and roll. I really, I took piano lessons. I loved classical music, and then as I got a little older, I kind of liked jazz. And then my cousin wanted to start a band. And by then I wasn't sure, he was starting a band. And I remember I was playing basketball after school in 7th or 8th grade. I think it might've been 7th grade, but I was about 12 and I heard this song playing downstairs in the cafeteria with all the cafeteria workers were, cleaning up or whatever. And I heard the song. It was Walk, Don't Run by the Ventures. So that was my next big influence was the drummer, there was Howie Johnson was the one on see, I didn't realize the original drummer from the Ventures, who played on Walk Don't Run, that great little drum bit, he wasn't in the band. They offered him like $100 or something, or 20, I think it was $25,
Right.
or share of the record. And he said, I'll take the $25. I think he became a landscaper.
Oh my God.
My God. Yeah, one of the most classic, but that's why I wanted to play rock, that one song. And then of course we became a Beach Boys cover band, when we got into high school.
Why hasn't it got to you?
I want to have it put out as a single. What's that?
It's a great song. Why hasn't it gotten to you? What is that? How you're built? Why aren't you? I mean, you don't have the big rock star persona at all. And don't say you weren't that, because you were.
Oh.
Why hasn't it gotten to you? Why don't you have a big head? Crazy question, I know, eh? Why don't you have a big head, damn it?
I'm a fan of you guys in radio. My dad was worked in a radio station, when I was a toddler. He worked at the TV station and radio station. He was the guy that kept the tubes running.
Oh,
I guess they don't have any tubes these days. No tubes.
nope.
And so we were on. We played a TV show where we played between the cartoons when we were 14 years old on TV. So I'm grateful. I'm a fan of this guy.
Oh yeah, I'd kill to have an interview with that guy.
Yeah.
I just interviewed Colin Blunstone of the Zombies, and he toured with them.
Zombies. They just did it. Yeah.
He said it was just. He says, everything you hear is wrong, but he is eccentric as hell. And man, if anybody has the right to be eccentric as hell and a little out there, it's freaking Brian Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, I went to see Pet Sounds tour 3 times. I saw the Smile tour multiple times. I went to the reunion tour, the 50th reunion tour, 4 times. And I remember one time this is how much a big fan I am. One time I had some tickets and I was in the back and I said to the usher, I'm a guitar collector. Can I go up there and see those guitars? And she says, yeah, but come back to your seat after you. So I run up to the front and I'm looking around and I see an empty seat in the front row. So I said to the person there, I said, is that seat open? Yeah, I think the person who was there went home. So I sat in that seat in the front row and then I scrunched down really low. And I was at the concert by myself because nobody would go with me, and you would do these daring things like sneak into the front row if you could. I'm just a fan, we're lucky to be in a band that has had some longevity. Here we are talking about the music that we created in 1972. I thought if we lasted 3 years, it would be a success. I wanted to be as big as the Moby Grape. And for your younger listeners out there, the Moby Grape were a group on Columbia Records. They were kind of a psychedelic, fun band, had a couple of really good records, but they disappeared. And not too much. I think maybe it had 2 records out.
And one of the other things that I would say, because this is a regret, I have a regret, and that is that one night, I had this band Soft White Underbelly. It was like the predecessor to Blue Oyster Cult, but Joe wasn't in it. Joe was still going to college then, so we got a gig as the house band at a club called Steve Paul's Scene. It was basically an after-hours club on 45th Street in Manhattan, west side of Manhattan. And I think it wasn't really run. It wasn't owned by the mob, but the mob was, they were pushing in on it and offering protection and all this stuff to poor Steve Paul. So and eventually they had to close because of that whole thing. But he hired us as the house band. So we warm up for all the various acts that would come in there, the national acts. And one night after we played our set, Jimi Hendrix came in. And right after, and he came in with his entourage. He went all the way to the other side of the room. And then right after that, Ringo came in with a couple people. And he sat at the opposite side. And so the Teddy Slatus, the house manager, came up and he said, "Hey, Albert, Jimmy wants to sit in, and we want to know if Ringo can use your kit." I said, "Are you kidding? Yeah, of course he can." And so he said, "Well, go over and tell him it's okay to use your kit." So I went over to Ringo. I said, "Hey, Ringo, pleasure to meet you. he knew I was the drummer, and because he saw me play, and I said, "Listen, Jimmy is going to play, and if you want to use my drum kit, that'd be great. I'd be honored for you to play it." And he's like, "Oh no, I'm just going to be a spectator tonight. I've had a busy week, So, and it turned out that he was at a party with Hendrix the night before at Stephen Still's house in L.A. So they had flown to New York, probably half in the bag, and so he didn't want to play. So I thought maybe I should ask Jimmy if I could play.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the nerve to do it. And I thought, oh, that'd be obnoxious. And then I didn't realize that, he was looking for a drummer, he was looking for somebody because, he couldn't, he ended up getting Buddy Miles, but, it could have been me on Bands of Gypsies, Yeah. So, So I wish I wish, number one, I would be cool with the people that I like, but number two, that I could have been a little more forward as far as advancing my career. I think that that's something that, and I regret that. I mean, it probably wouldn't have changed anything, but at least I could have asked. You don't ask, you don't get.
But how old would you have been then?
I was, let's see, that was 68. So I was 21.
Yeah,
Just turned,
still young.
just 21. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing about that. Most of the things I regret are in that pocket between, as a young adult, or the pocket between 19 and 26. After that, I'm going, We'll have more from Buck Dharma coming up in the next few days. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. If you want to help out Rock History Music, there's a link at the very top where you can make a donation or join our Patreon. But subscribe to our channel and like the videos. Share them on social media. Would appreciate that. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music.